I'm Helen Partlow with Waypoint Immigration USA, and we just released a brand new free NIW Success Guide. It's a step-by-step roadmap showing you how the NIW works, the evidence USCIS looks for, and the mistakes to avoid. Download your copy today and start building your future in the U.S. Hi, everybody. Happy Tuesday. I'm Helen Partlow, attorney at Waypoint Immigration, and I specialize in EB-2 NIW applications. And as you'll have just seen from the video I just made this morning, that we have just launched a new and free NIW resource guide. So if you go to waypointimmigration.org, at the top, you'll see a couple different tab options. You click over to resources, and we not only now have the H-1B layoffs guide, which we launched a couple weeks ago, but we now just launched the EB-2 NIW guide. So the landing page, you'll see a ton of FAQs that I think I've tried to think of everything as far as the FAQs I've come across just through speaking with different people. But at the top, you'll see in orange a button that says download your free guide. You just click on that, input your information, and then the link to the guide will pop up immediately. Then as you scroll down, you'll see a couple of different things, but as you continue down the page, you'll see those FAQs I was talking about. You know, what are the benefits of NIW, qualifications, proposed endeavor, reference letters, documentary evidence, and then each of the 3 prongs. And then lastly, of course, why Waypoint. Our firm is a bit different than others. We do not represent any companies. We were literally created with the mission that we are focused on helping the individual. So Amber, who is the founding attorney, of course, saw that there was definitely a need for people to get individualized attention and representation, because your company's attorney is your company's attorney. They're out for that best interest. That's who they represent. They may not be able to give you the best advice for you if it's definitely in conflict and things like that. So our entire firm is based upon trying to help those, and definitely my own personal mission is to try to help combat misinformation and rumors and things like that, so that you can be empowered through knowledge and by learning about this specific category. And if you do qualify, and then if you would also maybe find out, maybe you don't, and you don't want to then therefore, start to chase an option that may or may not end up working out for you. Of course, we are happy to do individualized assessments through a consultation. So on the same website, waypointimmigration.org, again, at the top of the tabs, you'll see something that says appointments, and then you'll see a different pile of categories. The very first one is EB-2 NIW. This is when then you would schedule a call with me or with Alex, who is a partner at the firm. Then you can go and select, a calendar kind of pops up, different days and times. You'll be able to see under service detail who you are meeting with. This particular week, I am going to an AILA conference up in Boston for the rest of the week. I leave tomorrow. So this week I have a little bit more of a limited availability, but Alex still has some availability for tomorrow. And then, of course, both of us have availability next week. So we would be happy to give you an individual assessment again on, your accomplishments, your jobs, your education, everything. Look at everything collectively there. But today I wanted to talk about the 3 different prongs. So normally I talk about reference letters and proposed endeavors and things like that, but I wanted to maybe break down the differences amongst the different prongs. So this is really something that you do need to know before you file for your NIW. So just a quick recap. The NIW is self-sponsored. You don't need your company to do it for you, which is what gives you a lot more freedom and control over your own journey. But it does not give you a legal status, and it does not give you any employment authorization. So if you are already in America, a lot of people I talk to are on like F1, OPT, H1B. You would have to maintain a status until you got your green card in hand. And right now there is a backlog for every country around the globe. It's not just those from China or from India. It's from everyone. We are estimating it to be around 3 to 5 years. That might change in a couple weeks once we get the October visa bulletin, which is the start of the fiscal year. We can hopefully see maybe they've taken a giant leap forward. Hopefully no retrogression or anything like that, but we can kind of gauge that a little bit better at the start of the fiscal year. But anyway, you would have to either come to America earlier on a different visa if you are not here already, or you would have to maintain your H-1B status, or if you are on F1 OPT, you probably will need to think of another plan for being in between there. But H-1B is just convenient because it's dual intent. You can intend to stay temporarily, permanently, and that sort of thing. And also with an approved I-140, with the approved NIW, you can renew your H-1B into the future until you got your green card in hand. So that's especially handy for those with a much bigger backlog from China, and especially those from India. But the NIW, the entire foundation is on your proposed endeavor. So that's what I usually talk about. I talk about it a lot. It's what your future plan is that would impact America. So that's kind of like the roadmap that you talk about, what your plan is, what methods will you use, what techniques, technologies will you implement. That's really giving the officer, not only do you have an idea, but you have a way of actually fulfilling this idea or progressing towards this idea. So that's the foundation of it. But then everything thereafter reverts back to the proposed endeavor. I think of the proposed endeavor as the foundation or the North Star. Everything points back to it. But then there's the 3 different prongs that you then have to talk about your proposed endeavor in that context. So prong 1 is substantial merit and national importance. Prong 2 is that you are well positioned to advance this proposed endeavor that you're describing. And then prong 3 is a balancing test showing that there's a benefit to the U.S. when you're balancing different factors. So the first prong is showing that your work has substantial merit and national importance. So substantial merit is just showing that it would matter to the U.S. on a broader level. Like, why is it important? Why would America care that you're helping advance these things? Like, what is the benefit and the good parts about what you are doing? So, anything like advancing public health, cybersecurity, some sort of STEM innovation, infrastructure, supply chain, some sort of critical nature that America has, showing why do we want to advance these things. That's what substantial merit is. But then you have to discuss the national importance of it. Is why does it matter to more than just your employer? Like, why does America get to benefit from this? So that's where you get into the whole benefit beyond just your company. And you need a paper trail, of course, to substantiate any of these claims. So, and it's not just reference letters. They're definitely needing more and more objective evidence showing that you can benefit more than just your employer. And, they're trying to see basically what's in it for America. Of course, you're going to benefit your company. That's the whole employer-employee relationship. But America wants to know if you're going to bypass the regular traditional route that perm is, how is this impacting to America? How is their national importance? How does it align with different executive orders or government reports or different sort of initiatives that America is doing? How has America shown that they're also interested in advancing these things? Then prong 2 is where we do like a deep dive into the person's background, their education, their skills, if they have publications, patents, any sort of leadership, recognition, conference presentations or attendance, certifications, speaking engagements, any sort of like technical white papers, or, obviously it all depends on what your field is and what, is maybe more typical for each individual type of person. But this is where we're showing that you are capable of actually progressing this advanced, you are capable of advancing your proposed endeavor because you have a background and skills and experience, etc. So, you don't have to show that there is a guaranteed success, but you have to show that you have like a record of success of your past in order to help show that you're able to move forward in the field that you are describing. And it's not just the field. I should say the proposed endeavor. The proposed endeavor is definitely like a mission based type of thing. It's not tied to a job. It's not tied to a company or anything like that. It's like, what is that mission you are on, and how are you capable of advancing that mission? Then prong 3, we're talking about the balancing test. So this is where you're saying to USCIS, my work is so important to America that, I shouldn't have to go through the perm process because I should be allowed to do these things that benefit America now. So that's talking about, why is it unique that you're maybe addressing a unique national thing through your proposed endeavor. Maybe you are advancing some sort of critical or emerging technology. Also talking about how you have a unique combination potentially of, experience, education, industry contributions, recognition, and things like that, that show that, it's not easily articulated in a labor certification process. So, this is where you are showing that your work, again, is so important to America that it outweighs any sort of risk it might have on the workforce for America because, it is urgent, you are unique, you have already benefited the US, you can continue to benefit the US, it aligns with different priorities of the US. This is basically, I kind of think of it as like the heart and soul of the NIW, even though there is really a lot of prong 1 emphasis, a lot, especially also in RFEs, like the officers really tend to harp on prong 1. And if it's not prong 1, then they typically tend to harp on prong 2. And then in the RFEs with prong 3, they don't really say too much. They don't really do that much of an analysis for prong 3, but this really is where you're kind of bringing it all together and showing that, America really needs you as an individual to work on whatever your proposed endeavor is. So again, it's not analyzing, is your field important? We're not analyzing, is your employer important? We're analyzing, are you as an individual important and, capable of moving forward these things on a grander scale beyond just your company. So we're looking to see that micro view of just you as a person. So that's where it gets a little bit tricky. Sometimes people tie things to jobs too much. Sometimes people do too much of an analysis on the field itself, but not the individual's proposed endeavor and the individual themselves. So definitely, it's important to kind of understand how we use that proposed endeavor to support the rest of the application. So, going back to that NIW success guide that I wrote with all the FIQs, it really does help break things down into practical steps. I give some building, like profile building activity suggestions, kind of like a checklist, but, there's certainly not like an all-inclusive list, and you certainly don't have to check off everything. Everything is very personalized. And our firm, as just like our course of business, we personalize every single petition letter. So, we're not the kind of firm that, we have our own internal checkpoint or something like that to making sure that you meet our template or meeting our checklist. We look to see how can we best position your expertise, your knowledge, your plans in order to align the best for an NIW. So, there are no templates. We're not putting you in any sort of like, fitting you into our mold or anything like that. We are definitely personalizing everything, and we're looking at everyone as an individual. I have talked to many people that say, oh, well, you helped do, an NIW for a coworker that got approved, therefore I should be able to get approved. Like, it's really not that easy. Everyone has their own individual accomplishments and things that are strengths to emphasize. And then people have things that are maybe more of a gap or weaknesses to kind of overcome. So we definitely take all of those nuances into account when we are doing things and looking at it from that kind of a perspective. But I do want to take some, Q&A. If anyone has any questions, to please to the comments, and I can bring it up here for everyone to kind of, we can talk about it certainly on like a general level. If you have an individualized question, or want us to help assess your specific profile, again, we're happy to do a consultation with me or with Alex, and you can set that up on the website. So I don't see any questions at the moment. So instead, I'm going to share that PDF that we did make, and you can again go to our website to download it. This is the NIW Success Guide. So you'll get this down as a PDF, and we kind of go over everything, how the process works, different sources of law about your proposed endeavor, the different prongs, etc. And, there's a couple more pages to it there, but I just wanted to give a little sneak peek as to what it looks like. So that way, hopefully my whole point is to try and help educate people, because I really feel like if people have the knowledge and understanding, it really does empower people to understand if it is an option for them and worth kind of pursuing and looking at. So yes, please post a question if you have it in the comments here, and I can hopefully help try to answer them for everybody. So I'll just wait a moment to see if any pop up. Otherwise, I guess we might just end early. And if you did want to get a link to that NIW guide, you can certainly just comment here and I can send it to you. You can DM me, I can send it to you. Or you can go to waypointimmigration.org under resources and find the NIW guide straight from the website. So that should also make it easier. Let me see if I can post that actually. Yeah, so I just added it to the bottom of the video, waypointimmigration.org, and then you can find the resources or an appointment. I am not seeing any questions. So again, if you wanted to, you can DM me a question. Oh, hold on, here's a question. Can you provide a link for NIV guidelines? Well, there are a lot of different options. So, you can always go to USCIS, the policy manuals, and, there's EB-1As, there's NIWs, there's PERM, there's different options there. So I would just encourage you to go through official sources like USCIS and find more information on there. Do I still book a consultation for NIW if I have questions around what my options are beyond the NIW? So that's a good question. If you have questions on just NIW, then it kind of makes sense to do the NIW application. Otherwise, if you're looking to do some sort of career planning or things like that, we do have an option for that as well. So again, you'd go to the website under appointments, you'll see a bunch of different options. And if you have a more general question on, just career planning or maybe something completely not related, there's career planning option, and then there's an other option. Both of those calls you would, I believe, probably talk with Amber or with Alex, and kind of get an idea as to where, the future kind of goes with what makes the most sense for you. If it's not NIW, they can discuss other options as well. My employer applied for my EB-2 NIW in July 2024. I've been working in systems implementation. Previously, I did software implementation, and now it's cybersecurity software implementation. Thoughts? So, from the way that this is written, I'm assuming this means it's still pending. Obviously that is more than a year ago, and I'm assuming therefore you did regular processing, and it has taken longer than a year. I would say most of the time it takes less than a year. So I'm kind of surprised that this is still pending, but I have heard of things going past a year. So you can either consider upgrading now to premium processing, which would force them to give you a response within 45 business days. But I don't think that there's necessarily anything to still do, even though it has been over a year. So anything past 2 years, that is where I think that you can maybe have your attorney try to reach out and find out what's going on. Okay, so you're saying, okay, so I'm also seeing another question here between these two comments, that you were doing software implementation and now it's cybersecurity, and you were doing healthcare implementation. So, this also makes a difference how you tell your proposed endeavor. So I'm not sure if you're able to access what they wrote for you or not, but, if you're saying that the original proposed endeavor was talking about software implementation with healthcare, but now you are doing cybersecurity. Um, did they pigeonhole you in a certain sort of a application or not? That's definitely a question to find out. If they talked about software implementation in general in different critical industries across America, then you might be okay. Otherwise, if they did pigeonhole you into cybersecurity and now you're doing healthcare, that could pose an issue. Um, so again, I would definitely urge you to, try and see what they wrote about it, and see if you can get a copy. How true is it that publications and citations are weighed more as compared to other evidence for prong two well positioned? Well, I do think that publications and citations is more of the traditional route for NIW. Certainly everyone always talks about publications and citations, but you just have to show that you are impactful. So there's plenty of applications that we've gotten approved that don't have any publications or citations because these people have real world impact. So you just need to have evidence of that. So publication citations, it's easy for people to find as evidence. You get your Google Scholar profile, you get copies of your publications, you can show the citations, you have a paper trail. So if you're able to just get a paper trail for the impact that you have had, there's certainly ways to kind of to go around it. And I would say most of our clients don't have any publications or citations. So you just have to make sure that you're able to show that you are being impactful beyond just your company, because then you'll show the officer that you're likely then to continue with that impact beyond just your company. On F1, waiting for my EB-1A to be approved. I have my EAD card and I wanted to start using it, but it might hinder my F1 status. And I also file EB-2 NIW and let go of the F1. So this definitely sounds nuanced. I would definitely suggest you making a consultation with us, and I would do appointments, and I would probably pick just other, because then we can talk about, there's different student visa things going on as well as EB-1A going on. I'm not sure why you would need an NIW if you got an EB-1A approved. So definitely would have more questions, and that's an individualized kind of a question for a consultation. Recently, the Trump administration has rolled back several existing laws, resulting in sudden shifts in policy trends. For instance, the emphasis on sustainability has been redirected toward non-renewable resources, even though the need for sustainable solutions remains greater than ever. In drafting the endeavor, can one still refer to the past, now revoked targets achieved under the IRI or IAJ, or should these be omitted altogether? The past regulations, in fact, are true, and it cuts off, obviously. So, we have definitely gotten approvals for those in, renewable resources. Like particularly, I had one approval in solar energy this year after Trump became president. And I definitely would redirect so that aligns under different national agendas that are current. So, there is still a national goal of having energy independence and being less reliant on other foreign countries. Also, diversifying our energy as a whole will also make us as a country stronger. So there are things that could be emphasized, obviously as long as it aligns. But I would not I would recommend not using laws that are no longer active, and aligning it with ones that are. I do have a copy of the application that was filed. If I did get an RFE, am I able to work with you, or do I have to continue with the employer's attorney? So, you certainly can make a consultation with us, and this happens a lot. I do talk with a lot of people that their employer brings their NIW, they get an RFE, and then they want to kind of just talk about it. So, would definitely be happy to do that through a consultation call. However, we would not be able to, respond to that RFE on your behalf. You do have your company brought the NIW, so they are the petitioner, you are the beneficiary, so that is not really within your control as to who would be able to file for the RFA, since it is an employer sponsored. This was the person that had asked a couple of questions earlier, so that way I remembered the background for anyone that doesn't recall. But yes, so we would be happy to make a call and help answer questions, but we would not be able to respond to it for you. The Trump administration's rollback of key laws has shifted policy targets. Oh, the continuation of the question that I already answered from before. Thanks, no problem. All right, so I don't see any other questions or comments on here. So I think I'm going to end there, but if you have any questions, please feel free to DM me, or you can email info@waypointimmigration.org, visit the website, etc. So hope everyone has a great rest of your day.